August 1978. 13-year-old Genette Tate set out on her paper round, her bicycle weaving through the quiet lanes of Aylesbeare, Devon. But what should have been an ordinary morning turned into a nightmare. Her bike was found laying in the road, newspapers scattered across the tarmac, the back wheels still spinning. But no Genette. No sign of a struggle. A desperate search would soon sweep the village and beyond, yet every lead ran cold. A mysterious maroon car, a chilling EFIT, whispers of strangers in the countryside, and a life stolen so abruptly it left the community reeling. What really happened to Genette Tate? Who took her? And why has the mystery remained unsolved for decades? Welcome to Crimes That Haunt Us. We release a new case every Sunday at 6 p.m, so hit subscribe and don't miss the next one. And let me know your thoughts on this case in the comments. I'd love to hear what you think. In the quiet, unassuming corners of rural England, where life unfolds at a gentle pace amid rolling farmlands and ancient villages, a story of innocence shattered began on May 5th, 1965. That day in Taunton, Somerset, Genette Louise Tate, affectionately nicknamed Ginny, entered the world as the only child of John Tate and Sheila Cook. John, a man of varied labours, including stints as a farm worker, and Sheila, a devoted housewife, welcomed their daughter into a modest home in the Wedland suburb of Taunton. From an early age, Genette stood out for her sharp mind in mathematics, her deep love for animals, her passion for writing and composing poetry, and an insatiable curiosity that helped her navigate her natural shyness. The years from 1965 through the early 1970s painted a picture of a simple, modest family life in Taunton. But beneath the surface, tensions simmered. John and Sheila's marriage gradually deteriorated, culminating in separation when Genette was still young. In the aftermath, Genette stayed with her father but kept regular contact with her mother, who remarried and had relocated to Bristol. By the early to mid-70s, change swept through their lives once more. John and Genette uprooted to Devon, settling in the serene rural village of Aylesbeare in East Devon, about 8 miles east of Exeter. John remarried Violet Tate, and they made their home at Barton Farm Cottage. Aylesbeare itself was a timeless snapshot of English countryside life. A parish church, a pub, a telephone box, and a population hovering around 500 souls. Traversing the village by car took a mere 30 seconds from end to end, quiet, respectable, and profoundly safe. At Barton Farm Cottage, Genette shared her days with her father John, now a sales representative grappling with the early stages of Mercadel's disease, a mild form of muscular dystrophy that would eventually confine him to a wheelchair, and her stepmother Violet, who worked at Exeter Hospital, with her stepsister Tanya, Violet's daughter from a previous relationship. Genette attended Aylesbeare Primary School, where she was known as quiet, friendly, and responsible. Family ties remained strong. She maintained ongoing contact with her biological mother Sheila, who visited periodically. Later, Genette transitioned to Exmouth Comprehensive School, about 10 miles from home. By August 1978, at the age of 13, Genette had taken on a temporary newspaper delivery round in Aylesbeare for 1 week, filling in while the regular paperboy was on holiday. She pedaled her bicycle along the rural lanes, including Withen Lane, saving her earnings for an up-and-coming family holiday, the money she left tucked away in her bedroom purse. Then came August 19th, 1978. A warm Saturday afternoon in the summer, unremarkable in every way until it wasn't. The day started routinely at 7:30 a.m. when John Tate left Barton Farm Cottage to drive Violet to her shift at the hospital in Exeter. By 10 a.m., John had returned and prepared breakfast for Genette and Tanya, who was gearing up for a fortnight's holiday in Cornwall with her birth father. Between 10:30 and 11 a.m., Genette and Tanya strolled to the Aylesbeare post office for some sweets. At 12:20 p.m., John drove Tanya and her boyfriend to Exeter to catch her coach to Cornwall, leaving Genette alone at Barton Farm Cottage. Neither John nor Tanya could have possibly known that this would be the last time they would see Genette Tate ever again. Sometime after 2 p.m., Genette set off on her blue Kalkoff bicycle to deliver copies of the Express and Echo newspaper. She rode through Aylesbeare along Withen Lane and out of the village to the busy A3052, the main road linking Exeter to the seaside town of Sidmouth, teeming with holiday traffic. She crossed the A3052 and collected her bundle of papers outside the White Horse Inn from the delivery van before starting her round. This was her last day as the relief paper girl. She had been handling this route for a week. Around 3 p.m., Genette began her deliveries in earnest. By 3:15 p.m., she had covered about 2/3 of Witham Lane, having dropped off 14 newspapers by this point. Then, at approximately 3:28 p.m., came the last confirmed sighting of Genette alive. Two school friends, Tracy Pratt and Maggie Heavey, both around 13 years old, spotted her at a small bridge on Withen Lane, about 100 meters from the center of Aylesbeare and within view of the ancient church turret. The three girls chatted by chance and began walking towards Aylesbeare together, with Genette pushing her bike up a small slope. Tracy Pratt then asked Genette for her mother's paper. As Genette pushed on ahead, the two girls lay down on the verge to read a story about a UFO sighting in the area. At the top of the incline, Genette remounted her bike and pedaled forward. She would have stayed in her friend's sight for about 50 meters until the country lane bent. It was the last glimpse her friends ever had of Genette. Her last known clothing, a white cotton t-shirt with Genette embroidered in red on the left shoulder, light brown corduroy trousers, white plimsolls. She carried no personal items beyond the papers and her purse. Around 3:35 p.m., after finishing the UFO story, Tracy and Maggie slowly followed in Genette's direction, only to stumble upon her bicycle abandoned in the middle of Withen Lane, lying on its side with the back wheel still spinning, a chilling sign of very recent abandonment. Newspapers were scattered and spilled from the basket onto the tarmac. The purse with collected money remained intact. There were no signs of struggle, no blood, no damage to the bike, no tire marks, suggesting a quick and silent abduction, ruling out a hit and run. The girls called out her name, peering over hedgerows into the fields, but silence answered them. Initially, Maggie and Tracy thought it was a prank, imagining Ginny had hopped a fence to scare them. But when their shouts went unanswered, they decided to wheel the bike back to Barton Farm Cottage to prevent Genette from getting into trouble. Approximately 4 p.m., Genette Tate's school friends, Margaret Heavey and Tracy Pratt, returned her blue Kalkoff bicycle to Barton Farm Cottage, about 25 minutes after finding it abandoned. They asked John Tate if Genette was home, instantly alerting him to her disappearance. John and Violet began searching the area with the friends and neighbors. By 5 p.m. in Aylesbeare, John Tate reported Genette missing to Devon and Cornwall police. The response was swift. 70 uniformed officers descended on the village within hours. An RAF search and rescue helicopter buzzed overhead, scouring the countryside. That evening, Detective Superintendent Eric Rundle, the most senior detective in Devon and Cornwall Police, assumed command. Initial theories ranged from accident to robbery to abduction. with kidnapping emerging as the most likely. The crime scene on Withen Lane was scrutinized, but the bicycle's prior movement by Margaret and Tracey had compromised potential evidence, such as tire marks or exact positioning. Forensic examination of Withen Lane followed. Police swabbed the road for tire marks, though none were found, further ruling out a hit and run. The inspection of Genette's bicycle and the scattered newspapers found nothing. No foreign fibers or fingerprints were detected, hampered by the limited forensic technology of the pre-DNA era. The bicycle was undamaged, and Genette's purse containing money from her newspaper round remained intact, ruling out robbery. Money saved for a family holiday was discovered in her bedroom, discounting any runaway theory. Interviews with friends ensued. Margaret Heavey and Tracy Pratt recounted seeing Genette at 3:15 p.m. on the small bridge on Withen Lane, where they chatted briefly while Genette pushed her bike up a slope before vanishing from their sight. Maggie would later recall being questioned extensively, sometimes up to 3 times a day, for about 6 weeks after the disappearance. Detectives repeatedly visited her home, including on a Sunday lunchtime when her mother attempted to stop them, saying, "Sorry, but you're not invited to eat with us today." Maggie was taken for further questioning regardless. She later noted, "I don't know if they thought I was involved," indicating the intensity of police scrutiny. On August 20th in Aylesbeare, police set up a command post in the village hall near Barton Farm Cottage. 70 uniformed officers, 50 detectives, mounted officers from Avon and Somerset Police, underwater search units and search dogs were mobilized. All ponds and surrounding terrain were combed, but no evidence surfaced. Between August 20 and 21, key eyewitnesses came forward. A Miss Matilda Rogers, a policeman's wife from Hull, and her 14-year-old daughter Gail, on holiday in Devon, were interviewed. They reported seeing Genette and her friends at the Withen Lane Bridge shortly before her disappearance around 3:15 p.m. They also spotted a man in a maroon Triumph saloon or similar, such as a Marina or Toledo, driving toward the girls, passing close to where Genette vanished. A photo fit of this driver, male, early 20s, pale complexion, short dark hair, light shirt, described as very handsome, was created and circulated nationwide. Mr. Gorman, a driving instructor, reported seeing a maroon Triumph car driven by a young man in his 20s with dark hair, wearing a light-colored shirt and playing loud music. Other individuals reported seeing a maroon-colored car in the vicinity of Withen Lane around the time of Genette's disappearance. These reports further corroborated the presence of the maroon car, though no concrete leads emerged. These leads became the investigation's primary focus for years, though some later questioned their credibility. Police were also informed of a report from 2 local girls who had encountered a young man talking to them briefly near the lane leading to Barton Farm Cottage in Aylesbeare. The girls described him as a pale young man in his early 20s with short dark hair and wearing a light-colored shirt. They did not recognize him and recalled only a brief, seemingly innocuous interaction. Police also explored potential links between this sighting and reports of a maroon car in the area around the same time, suspecting that the man may have been connected to the vehicle or observing children near the farm. On August 22, 1978, the first major press appeal was issued by Devon and Cornwall Police, just 3 days after her disappearance. They circulated photographs of Genette and her description: 5 feet, slim, brown hair, sometimes wearing glasses, though this image circulated was of Genette aged 9, which later drew scrutiny given that Genette had physically matured and changed appearance by age 13 when she had vanished. They appealed for anyone who had seen a maroon car in Aylesbeare or unusual activity near Barton Farm Cottage. This was published in local newspapers like the Exeter Express and Echo and aired on BBC Regional Radio. Also on the 22nd of August, police interviewed local men with maroon cars based on the Rogers sighting. No arrests were made. DI Mike Walsh's team questioned known sex offenders in the area, but no viable suspects emerged. Police turned their attention to Genette's father, John Tate, who was interviewed early in the investigation to account for his movements. He provided a verified alibi. He was in Exeter from approximately 12:20 p.m., collecting Violet from work at the hospital, eating ice cream in the cathedral yard, shopping, and waving Tanya and her boyfriend off at the coach station. Staff at Dingle's department store confirmed he had purchased a replacement plate from their store. Police were satisfied, ruling him out as a suspect. Margaret Heavey underwent hypnosis to unlock potential subconscious clues. Under hypnosis, she provided a car number plate which police traced to a brown car owned by a local resident. The owner was investigated and eliminated from the inquiry. Maggie and Tracey continued to face frequent questioning, sometimes up to 3 times daily. On August 26th, a television appeal aired on regional news. Devon and Cornwall Police featured in a regional ITV broadcast. Eyewitness sketches and descriptions of a maroon car and a young man in his 20s were shown. The public was urged to call in any sightings immediately, particularly for anyone travelling between Aylesbeare and Exeter. On that same day, in a remarkable display of community solidarity, approximately 8,000 volunteers, dubbed Genette's Army, gathered on Woodbury Common near Aylesbeare, Devon, to conduct a massive search for 13-year-old Genette Tate. The extensive effort, coordinated by Devon and Cornwall Police, scoured the surrounding countryside, fields, and woodlands, but yielded no evidence or clues regarding her whereabouts. Amid the desperate search, police also received informal input from psychics and mystics whose suggestions proved unproductive and failed to generate any actionable leads. Despite the scale of the operation and the community's hope, the search concluded without results, deepening the mystery of Genette's disappearance. In late August through to September, over 10,000 interviews were conducted, including door-to-door inquiries across Aylesbeare and surrounding areas. No new suspects or evidence emerged. The maroon car lead remained central, with police following up on similar vehicles, later described via hypnosis as possibly a Triumph 1300 or a car with fins. On September 1st, the case gained wider attention in national newspapers, including The Times and The Guardian. Detailed appeals included the artist's impression of the man seen near the farm, emphasizing the pale complexion, short dark hair, and light-colored shirt. Police reiterated the maroon car sightings, hoping to generate leads beyond the local area. In September, police continued forensic analysis of the crime scene, but no new evidence emerged. The investigation began to shift toward a long-term missing person inquiry, with abduction and murder considered the most likely scenario. By October, the investigation slowed as leads dwindled. Police maintained a presence in the village hall, coordinating searches and following up on tips, but no breakthroughs occurred. Over 8,000 statements were recorded, forming a massive filing system. In February 1979, 6 months after his daughter Genette Tate's disappearance, John Tate founded the International Find a Child charity based in Devon, aimed at supporting families of missing children and raising awareness about such cases. Motivated by the ongoing uncertainty surrounding Genette's fate, the charity sought to provide resources and advocacy for parents in similar situations, leveraging John's personal experience to drive its mission. In 1979, an unidentified female body washed ashore on the Devon coast. Police briefly considered it as Genette due to age and size similarities, but forensic analysis from the autopsy checked the dental records and clothing, quickly ruling out a match. In 1980, according to reports from later media accounts and investigative sources, John Tate reportedly received a police caution after admitting to an assault on a 9-year-old girl, with the caution granted on humanitarian grounds amid the ongoing trauma from his daughter Genette's disappearance the previous year. This incident was not pursued further by authorities and was explicitly ruled out as having any connection to Genette's case, though it later prompted questions about family dynamics in retrospective analysis. A Sunday Mirror article controversially labeled John Tate as a sex fiend, a claim that remains unsubstantiated and lacks further elaboration or confirmation of its relation to the 9-year-old assault, adding to the speculative narrative surrounding his personal conduct. Early on in the Genette investigation, a suspect slowly began to take center stage amongst detectives. Ian Bealey, a 33-year-old local with a dark past, whose chilling presence near the scene of the 13-year-old's disappearance set Devon and Cornwall police on high alert. Stationed at the Milk Marketing Board's artificial insemination unit just a few miles away, Bealey, known to roam the village's hidden lanes, allegedly whispered details of the girl's abduction to a witness by 4:05 p.m., nearly an hour before her father, John Tate, reported her missing at 5 p.m., sparking grim theories that he had either orchestrated the crime or stumbled upon its aftermath. A familiar figure in the tight-knit community, Bealey's unsettling pre-knowledge and proximity to the crime scene made him a prime suspect in those early frantic days. But by 1980, with no hard evidence to tie him to Genette's fate, the trail had run cold, leaving detectives haunted by a lead that refused to break. On February 2, 1981, local sex offender Ian Bealey, then aged 33, struck terror in rural Devon when he abducted and murdered 16-year-old Virginia Maunder in Tiverton, just a stone's throw from Exeter, dumping her battered body in the remote Quarry Lane in Digby, earning a life sentence later that year at Exeter Crown Court for a crime branded callous, deliberate, and evil. The slaying's eerie proximity to Aylesbeare, barely 10 miles away, in the same web of quiet back lanes where Genette Tate had vanished 2.5 years earlier, ignited fresh suspicions among Devon and Cornwall police, who eyed chilling similarities. Both victims were vulnerable young girls snatched in isolated spots, with Bealey's calculated disposal of Maunder's remains mirroring fears that Tate had met a similar fate, her body hidden in the countryside's unforgiving folds. Locked away in a prison for Maunder's murder, Bealey was grilled by detectives over potential links to Tate's unsolved case, his earlier presence in Aylesbeare and alleged pre-knowledge of the abduction fueling the probe. But with no smoking gun or concrete evidence emerging, the interrogation dead-ended, leaving the shadows of doubt to linger unbanished. In 1983, in the sweltering heat of Brisbane, Queensland, 5 years after Genette Tate vanished into thin air, 2 determined detectives from Devon and Cornwall Police, Superintendent Don Crabb and Detective Inspector Tony Fursland, embarked on a flight to Australia. Their target, a former Exeter resident who had emigrated to Australia 2 years prior, carrying whispers of a chilling secret about a local suspect's inexplicable foreknowledge of the girl's abduction. Armed with questions about the man's earlier, now missing statement, passed indirectly through a third party, the officers hoped to pry loose the details that could finally crack the case wide open, linking the dots to convicted murderer Ian Bealey, who had allegedly been in Aylesbeare on that very day. But the operation, shrouded in secrecy, unraveled amid media leaks that twisted the story into sensational headlines, fueling disinformation and raising the stakes. In the end, Despite the long journey and fleeting optimism, no charges emerged, leaving the shadows of suspicion to linger unresolved in the vast Australian expanse. Throughout the 1980s, the case went cold, with police maintaining over 20,000 index cards in a filing system at Devon and Cornwall Police Headquarters in Exeter. Annual appeals and interviews with potential witnesses continued, but no new forensic evidence or suspects emerged. Theories of ransom abduction, sex trafficking, or a local pedophile ring were investigated but lacked evidence. In 1990, Devon and Cornwall Police reopened the Genette case following the conviction of Robert Black for the abduction and sexual assault of a schoolgirl in Stowe, Scotland. Black's history of similar crimes prompted the police to investigate potential links between him and Tate's 1978 disappearance. From 1990 to 1991, Black was interviewed by police about Genette's case. He denied involvement, and inquiries failed to place him in Aylesbeare on August 19, 1978. No forensic evidence linked him to the crime. Between 1991 to 1993, Black was interviewed by Dr. Ray Wire, a pioneering expert in child offender treatment. Black disclosed detailed knowledge of the scene and circumstances of Genette's abduction, raising suspicions. However, no confession or direct evidence emerged, and police could not corroborate his presence in Aylesbeare. In 1993, the International Find a Child Act charity, founded by John Tate in 1979 to support families of missing children following his daughter Genette's disappearance, was removed from the charity register amid allegations of fund mismanagement, as reported in later media accounts. No formal charges were brought against John Tate, and the charity's closure marked the end of its operations without further legal action. Between 1994 and 1995, John Tate was involved with a local branch with the Muscular Dystrophy Group, which also ceased operations amid claims of missing funds. Though, as with the IFAC case, no formal charges were substantiated against John Tate, and these allegations remained unproven. May 19, 1994, Robert Black is convicted for the murders of Susan Maxwell in 1982, Caroline Hogg in 1983, Sarah Harper in 1986, and an attempted abduction in 1990. He was then identified as a prime suspect in the Genette disappearance, partly due to his employment as a delivery driver for Poster Dispatch Services, a London-based firm. Investigations confirmed that Black's job involved delivering posters across the UK, with routes that brought him into the Exeter area in Devon during 1978, as evidenced by fuel receipts and delivery records reviewed by police. These records placed Black in the proximity to Aylesbeare, approximately 8 miles east of Exeter, around the time Genette vanished on August 19, 1978. A 1996 witness statement further corroborated this, reporting Black leaning on a transit-style van, described as red, though typically noted as white, at Exeter Airport near Aylesbeare on the day of the disappearance, observing children before driving toward the village. While no precise itinerary of Black's routes on that specific date has been publicly disclosed, the circumstantial evidence of his presence in the region, combined with his known pattern of targeting young girls in rural areas during delivery runs, strengthened police's suspicions. Black was interviewed again by Devon and Cornwall police, but denied involvement. Police inquiries could not confirm his presence in Aylesbeare, and the van's color conflicted with the maroon car description. In 2002, in a significant forensic development, Devon and Cornwall police identified DNA belonging to Genette Tate on a jumper that had been preserved by a biological mother, Sheila Cook. This breakthrough provided a genetic profile that could potentially be used to identify Genette's remains if they are ever located, offering a critical tool in the ongoing investigation. In August 2008, the Crown Prosecution Service reviewed evidence against Robert Black and determined there was insufficient evidence to charge him with Genette's murder. The case remained open, with Black as the prime suspect. On October 27, 2011, Black was convicted for the 1981 murder of Jennifer Cardy in Northern Ireland. A police service of Northern Ireland spokesperson noted striking similarities between Cardy's murder and Genette's disappearance, strengthening suspicions. Devon and Cornwall police continued to investigate Black's potential involvement. In June 2014, Devon and Cornwall police reviewed the case, allocating resources to find new evidence against Black. A team of 8 detectives, including some from the original 1978 inquiry, re-examined witness statements and circumstantial evidence, such as Black's delivery routes and van descriptions, but no new forensic evidence is found. In autumn 2015, under Detective Superintendent Paul Bergen's direction, Devon and Cornwall police prepared a detailed dossier for the Crown Prosecution Service to evaluate charging Robert Black, the now convicted and infamous serial killer. The extensive file, compiled over 2 years of renewed investigation, included numerous witness statements and circumstantial evidence implicating Black. Investigators were convinced of his involvement due to his pattern of targeting young girls in rural settings, abducting them swiftly, sexually assaulting them and killing them, and disposing of their bodies far from the crime scene, a scenario mirroring Genette's abrupt vanishing on Withen Lane. Earlier evidence, including fuel receipts placing Black near Exeter in 1978 as a postal dispatch service's delivery driver, and a 1996 witness account of him observing children at Exeter Airport near Aylesbeare on the day of the disappearance, was bolstered by 2 new witnesses in 2015. These witnesses provided previously undisclosed details of Black's behavior during the relevant period, though specifics of their identities or observations were never released. Despite the compelling circumstantial case, no new forensic evidence, such as DNA or physical items from the crime scene, emerged. Planned for submission to the CPS in February 2016, the dossier's progress was halted by Black's death on January 12, 2016 in Maggie Prison, Northern Ireland, leaving Genette's case unresolved with no charges filed. In April 2016, Devon and Cornwall police submitted the file to the CPS, containing scores of witness statements and circumstantial evidence pointing to Black. The CPS confirmed no charges could be filed due to Black's death and ruled out progressing proceedings posthumously. On May 18, 2020, John Tate, Genette Tate's father, passed away at the age of 77. Living with the enduring pain of Genette's 1978 disappearance and his own battle with McArdle's disease, John's passing marked a poignant moment in the case, leaving the investigation open but inactive, with Robert Black still considered the prime suspect by Devon and Cornwall police. The case endures as Britain's longest-running missing person inquiry, with over 20,000 index cards stored at Devon and Cornwall police headquarters. Genette's bike remains locked away in a cage in the police's evidence room. Genette Tate was just 13, a young girl full of promise, laughter, and the everyday dreams of a childhood. Her life, so abruptly and cruelly stolen, left a void that can never be filled, a family and a community haunted by her absence. Yet her memory endures, a quiet reminder of the fragility of innocence and the lasting impact of a life taken too soon. In remembering Genette, we honor the bright future she never had the chance to live. Thank you for watching Genette's story. Please feel free to add your own thoughts, comments, and theories down below, and we'll see you next time.